brightest guy in the world. In fact, I'm I think the word is dumb. And my memory's so bad that I have to wear my old Army dog tags to keep from forgetting my name. But there is one thing I remember good. Zelda Gilroy has always been ape for me. Ever since we were little tiny kids, she's been chasing me the way cats chase mice, the way dogs chase cats, the way dog catchers chase dogs. So when I finally came to her and told her she had caught me at last, and when she said she didn't want me, well, I knew there had to be some kind of mistake.
You're right, Poopsie. It's some kind of mistake.
Now you're using your head, Zelda.
That's right, Dobie. Now, at long last, for the first time, I'm using my head.
And it's quite a head, Zelda. You've got a brain that's right up there with Socrates, Einstein, and Peter Lawford.
Thank you. Now, about your brain, I don't mean to be unkind, but I've known hamsters smarter than you.
Oh, I've known mud turtles smarter than you. I've known angleworms smarter than you.
All right, I'm a dope. I admit it. That's why I want you, Zelda. For years, you've been telling me I'm a tin-thumbed idiot.
Yes, you have, Zelda. I'm a witless.
That's witness, but we won't dispute the point.
And here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Poopsie.
Yes, hi, Jim.
Hi, welcome
How
to the
are
Jim Bohannon Show, everyone. And, of
Thank
course,
you.
we have just entered the generation zone. Those of you on one side of it immediately said, say, what? And on the
Yes.
other side said, Dobie Gillis! And in truth, Dwayne Hickman
Yes, with
and Joan Roberts Hickman, his wife, is our guest tonight. Good to
Yes.
have you both here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
The first thing I guess we should probably dispel is the notion that your entire life was compressed into the years 1959 to 1963.
Yeah, everybody thinks I'm Dobie Gillis forever, but really I worked as a child actor starting about 1940. In fact, 1940, I think I made $21. I looked it up in my Social Security records. I was a little extra boy in movies. And I worked around all kinds of stars, John Wayne and Gary Cooper and those kinds of people. And it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Right here on page 3, I note your brother. First of all, your mother was a stage mother.
Well, yeah, and Daryl Hickman was 3 years older than I was, and he kind of got started naturally before I did, and he had the better parts in all these films. And my mother didn't have a sitter, so she dragged me along to the studio, and pretty soon I was in the pictures, too.
It was in The Grapes of Wrath. You all recall, don't you remember
Yes,
Dobie Gillis in The Grapes of Wrath?
No. Yeah, I think I worked 2 days.
You were an extra in that.
Yeah, and Daryl had a very good part in that, you know.
Yeah. So you got exposed to all of this.
Yes.
As Joan, as you were helping to put together this look at your husband's life, were you aware of all the things he'd done and the people he'd seen?
I had no idea, especially as a child, and I found, for me, one of the most fun aspects of the book was all of his time growing up, going through Catholic school, his time with the nuns, which I think is always interesting. If you've gone to parochial school, I think you've had your
The nuns were pretty
nuns,
strict.
yes.
They were very strict, but I got a good
Black belt
education.
religion.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
Well, yeah,
it.
you got it. Yeah.
And but yet it was like a lot of us growing up as teens in the era, and yet unlike. For example, page 42, movies at the DeMills.
Well, yeah, we lived in a
Didn't you go
neighborhood
there?
where up on top of the hill in Laughlin Park was a great big house like in Sunset Boulevard, and Cecil B. DeMille lived in this house. And I was dating a girl whose family was invited to his house for screenings. So I'd be invited too, and we'd go there. He'd have a projection room, like in the movies. It was like in the movies. And he would wander in. We'd all take our seats and be very quiet, and then he'd come in and go down in front, and there was a great big leather chair, and he would sit in that chair with an ottoman and all that. And then he'd wave his hand to the projection guy, and the movie would start, and we'd just be like mice, we wouldn't say a word. And then when the movie was over, it was dead silence, and you were afraid to say anything, because you waited to see what he would say about the movie. Like if he said, pretty good, I liked it. And then we'd all say, yeah, I liked it too. Pretty good. Yeah, I liked it too. I liked it. If he said, boy, that's a bad movie, then we'd all turn to one another and say, oh, terrible movie. I liked it. Didn't like it at all.
There were acting roles that followed, and you gradually became known as a young person who could be depended on to work in various roles. You became known as a young person who would occasionally stand around in his jockey shorts in John Wayne's
Yes,
dressing room.
well, I once changed
That was
clothes,
a
yes,
favorite
as a little
story,
kid, a picture called Tall in the Saddle. And we needed a place to change, and I didn't know any better. My mother took me in John Wayne's dressing room, and we were quickly changing our clothes, my clothes, and in walked John Wayne, all 6'5" of John Wayne, as you remember. He looked at me like I was a bug, and I felt like a fool standing there in my jockey shorts, changing my clothes, and of course we quickly left. He said, no, go ahead, finish, and it was very embarrassing.
So you later, I thought this was such a great line. You said, "I'm
I
sorry,
said,
Mr. Wayne,
yeah,
but
my mother made me do it."
it."
And he said, "Kid, it won't be the first time a woman makes you do something you don't want to do." which is John Wayne,
Lessons in life.
Yeah.
Now, at some point, the name Dobie Gillis was introduced here. What was that point?
Forever Dobie is the book we wrote. We wrote
Right.
it because, I did that series. First I did the Bob Cummings show from 54 to 58. And
But
then
I mean, in your personal life, at some point somebody came to you and said, we have a script.
Yeah. I had done Cummings, and then they were going to do this series. And because I'd done Chuck on the Bob Cummings show, they came to me and said, hey, you'd be perfect for Dobie Gillis, and I read for the people. And Max Schulman had created the character in short stories and other books and so forth. So he wanted me because he'd seen me on television in Cummings. And I did the pilot in 1958, the end of 58, started doing the show in 59. It ran for 4 years, and it's been rerunning for the last 35 years.
Is it really true, honest to goodness, that Warren Beatty denies?
Well, he did for years. It was never in his bio that he'd ever been on television, and he played Milton Armitage, the rich boy.
Yeah.
He did play the part in 3 or 4
But
episodes.
it's very interesting because since the book has come out,
Yeah.
his publicist has now made a statement that Warren, of course, remembers being the show and has fond memories of Dobie
So
Gillis.
the book has jogged his memory.
Yeah, so his
and now
amnesia
he
has been
remembers.
cured.
I don't think he wanted to be known as someone that appeared on television.
Dustin Hoffman used to give him a hard time about it all the time. He'd just shrug and kind of give one of those looks, and still just, slough it off. But now he's finally, I guess, fessed up and admitted to it.
Yeah, but he played in the show the first few, and then, of course, Tuesday Well played Thalia Meninger. and-
Two of your favorite people.
Yes,
would-
two of
would
my
gather.
favorite people.
Well, let's tell the come
I
on.
mean, well,
People got to know
I
now.
didn't get along that well with Tuesday. She was just a kid. She was a teenage kind of sex symbol. She was only 15, 16 years old, and she wasn't very disciplined. And of
16
course,
going on 30.
16 going on 30, and I was older, and it was my show, and I was working very hard to make it a good show, and I had a lot to do, and I felt that she wasn't really very supportive of that fact, and so we didn't get along all that well.
But for that matter, with Warren, it wasn't exactly a love fest either.
Well, I mean, Warren was a law unto himself, I mean, he hardly...
Even then?
Oh,
he
yes,
was nobody.
He was a big star then in his own mind. He really was. He was a guy that was assured of success when he was not a success at all. I mean, he had an amazing personality, and he didn't talk to Bob Denver. He didn't talk to me much, and he just kind of lived in his own world. And obviously it worked for him because he went on and became a big star.
We'll take a break. We're going to come back with more as we talk with Dwayne Hickman and Joan Roberts Hickman. That is right. We're talking about the people who have given you Forever Dobie, the many lives of Dwayne Hickman, and there are quite a few, and we have just scratched the surface. We're going to be back with more and talk about this Birch Lane Press publication. We will, for example, in the next 15 minutes, tell you who said, "Hot damn, I got me a cow," after these messages.
How my close-knit father feels.
Deck the halls with boughs of holly. La 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 la.
Look how my kid cousin Dunky feels it.
'Tis the season to be jolly. Fa la 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 la.
And of course my mother feels the holiday spirit more than anyone.
Christmas? Bah! Humbug!
Ah, yes. The many lives of Dobie Gillis, and the many lives, in fact, of Dwayne Hickman, of which that's merely one.
Yeah.
Dwayne and his wife, Joan Roberts Hickman, are with us in studio, having given us a wonderful book called Forever Dobie.
That we wrote in longhand, sitting on a bed while our baby took his naps.
No
In
computer.
Yes.
No computer.
And we don't type, and we have no computer, so we're really a mom and pop operation, I want to tell you.
Well, you're Dobie Gillis. How could
Yes,
you learn
how
that?
could I be anything else but that?
Our
you know?
information superhighway is a 2-lane dirt road.
Yes, with
So,
potholes.
but we worked very hard on this book, and we're kind of proud of it.
Well, I think you certainly should be. This is a wonderful look at a career. You're one of the few people, I guess, who's ever really spanned that gap between management and...
Well, yeah, I left acting in 1977 to join CBS Television as a program executive, and I was there for 10 years. I supervised shows like MASH and All in the Family, Maude, and worked on Designing Women, for example. And when I left CBS in '87, I directed some Designing Women. In fact, Joan has written for Designing Women.
There was at one point, I understand, since we all know that the Thomasons had a certain connection.
Linda Bloodworth Thomason
Yes.
and Harry Thomason, yes.
At one point, there was a certain politician who appeared on the set.
Yeah, well, no, Bill
FOB.
Clinton. We met
Friends of Bill.
Bill Clinton at a party
Oh,
at,
it was a
at two
party.
different
Yes.
times, at two receptions, and he said he was a fan of Dobie Gillis, and I was very, very flattered. Yeah, he was Governor Clinton at the time, and
It was kind of fun because we got there and he looked across the room and he says, "Oh my gosh, it's Dobie Gillis. I grew up with
it's
you."
Dobie Gillis. Where till I tell Chelsea? You know, it was one of those, and he was very charming, and we liked him a lot.
Well, here, there's a gentleman here. Let's see.
Lee Marvin.
Well, I was going to try to let people guess, actually, but yeah, Lee Marvin is who I was going to be talking about.
Lee Marvin was in Cat Ballou, and that was a great part for me to get a Western where I could wear guns and ride a horse and be like a cowboy. But Lee, you know, was really the star of Cat Ballou, not really Jane Fonda. It wasn't her
Well, he
picture.
won the Academy Award.
He won an Academy Award playing a drunken gunfighter.
And another character, too.
The problem, yeah, it was two characters, but the problem with Lee is that he really did drink, and I mean a great deal. I remember we were leaving Canyon City, Colorado one early morning about 6 o'clock, and he didn't show up, and they got him out of his room, and he was still kind of from the night before dressed in his cowboy clothes, and he put on a bathrobe and a lady's hairnet over his head and dark glasses, and grabbed up some kind of a case and got in this car. And I noticed that in one pocket of his bathrobe, he put on around his clothes, he had a bottle of vodka, and in the other pocket he had some tonic. So he got in the car like this, and I thought this was kind of strange.
And this was like, what, 6:45 in the morning?
Yeah, 6 o'clock in the morning, and he said to me in the station wagon, "Would you like a drink?" And I said, "No, no, thank you. It's kind of early for me." So at that point, he took out the vodka and tonic and poured one into the other and kind of shook it a little bit, like to mix it up, and then he drank a little bit of that. Then he said, "Let me see, roll down the window," and he took out of his knapsack this .45 automatic that he clicked a few times and checked the clip on and all that, and then he had to roll down this window, and he looked out the window and said, "I'm going to get me a cow." So he started firing this gun out the window of the station wagon, and I swear about 5 shots later, a cow or steer standing by the side of the road fell over. Just fell over. And
Dropped
he said,
like a stone.
"God damn, I got me a cow." You know, that was Lee Marvin. We got to the airport, and they drove him right on the field to the plane. It was a charter. And he played poker all the way to Burbank, California, in the back of the plane. And he was a wild man. Very funny, but he was something else.
Joan, how did you meet Dwayne?
Well, I was guest starring on a pilot at CBS, and Dwayne was the executive on the pilot. And he saw me in dailies, and I happened to have a scene where I was getting out of a pool, and he said to somebody...
And she looked great, by the way.
Yeah, dailies, by the way, that's
Yes.
what they shot the previous day. They
Yeah,
always
previous
check out
day's
the next
shooting,
day.
and Joan looked really lovely in her bikini.
bathing suit, yeah.
Yeah, she looked great.
So anyway, he asked the producer about me, and we were old friends, and so we met at the rap party, and he came up, and he tapped me on the shoulder and introduced himself to me. And I have to say, if people don't believe in love at first sight, and maybe this sounds corny, the moment I turned around and looked at him, I thought, I'm in big trouble, because I just think I met the guy I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. And it was funny because I didn't really remember him as Dobie Gillis. I somehow fell between the cracks. I had seen it a couple times, but it didn't register.
You're just too young.
Yes, I am.
Yes, she's
that's
much
very
too
true.
young
And
to
thank
remember
you
me
very
as
much
Dobie
for that.
But she's read about it.
Oh, that's it.
But we have a great relationship. You know, we work together. We spend an awful lot of time together. Now we have our 2-year-old, Albert Thomas, who's 2 years old today.
Today.
It was 2 years ago tomorrow that I cooked a turkey dinner. I cooked it myself. A whole turkey dinner with the dressing and gravy and everything, because Joan came home from the hospital
that
with
day.
Albert.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
2 years ago tomorrow.
that's wonderful.
Yeah, and I'll
That's
never forget
beautiful.
that.
Dobie Gillis' father.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does it bother you? Surely at some point in your career it must have bothered you. Enough of the Dobie Gillis. I'm Dwayne Hickman. Cut it out.
Yeah. I felt that on and off for years, but I've kind of given up on it, to tell you the truth. In fact, we're even working on a show called Dobie Jr., where I'd be the father of a teenager in the 90s, and, you know, it would be the same kind of a thing.
I see all of this nostalgia, all of
Yeah,
these reunion
well,
shows,
I was
Andy
a
Griffith.
I was a
mean-
spokesman for the angst of the teens in the 50s and 60s. Why
Right.
not be a spokesman for the baby boomers and let some young guy come along and talk about, you know, and he could do monologues and talk about being a teen in the 90s. I think it's a good idea.
Well,
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, we wrote a script that has been so far very well received.
I'll call Warren and see if he's available.
I
Would
don't
you do
think
that?
so. I don't think so.
Now, there was one thing that, for those of you who didn't see the show, Dobie was forever talking to the camera.
Yes.
It was I thought it was an intriguing part of the show. At the time, I didn't really know about such dramatic devices, but in retrospect, I thought, gee, I don't remember that being done before that,
No,
except
no.
maybe for George Burns. to
George
talk to
Burns was the
camera.
only
Yes.
person that I knew of that ever
Yeah.
did it. It was very fresh and very different and kind of fun, kind of different, you know, breaking that fourth wall, they call that. And it's different. I enjoyed it. I really did. You kind of bared your soul. You know, I'm Dobie Gillis. I'm 17 years old, and I want a girl. Round, soft, creamy, dreamy girl to call my very own. One lousy girl. Standing between me and that girl is one thing. I need
Zelda.
money. I need money, and my father, they cut to him, and he's there. And, of course, Zelda, Sheila James, was always chasing me, and I was chasing everybody else.
Have you ever met Sheila James?
Oh, I know her very well. As a matter of fact, she just won the 41st district in Santa Monica, California, and she is going to the State House. She is going to be our assemblywoman.
Is that
Yeah,
right?
we
and
both
we happen
voted
to
for her.
live
Yeah,
there, so
yeah.
we have sent Zelda to the State House.
Zelda
Yeah.
now represents
Well, she's a very
Dobie in the
bright-
state assembly.
Sheila James Kuehl is a very bright lady. She was a lawyer. She went to Harvard Law School, taught at UCLA, and she's now in the State Assembly.
Very smart, very
and a good
bright.
friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does it give you any kind of a special entree, or perhaps the other side of the coin, maybe does it distort things for you to be an entertainment executive who has also been in front of the camera?
I don't know. No, I don't think so. It just kind of is strange. I've done so many different things because, I'm directing now and acting again. I'm going to start acting again. We spent so much time with this book because we work very slowly, with...
Longhand, yeah.
Well, yeah,
Sure.
longhand and between Naps and Barney and Winnie the Pooh and all that. So the book took much longer than it should have. But I've done a lot of things, and I have a lot of points of view, The network point of view is not necessarily my personal point of view. I really like performing and creating. That's corporate. The corporate world is not my favorite thing.
Oh, this is one thing I have to ask you about. Whenever the monologues took place, Dobie, more often than not, was standing in front of this statue of Rodin's The Thinker.
Rodin's Thinker statue,
Yes.
Whatever happened to the statue?
That statue was paper mache. Was
Paper
fake-
mache?
Well, it
Yes.
wasn't a real statue because it would be granite or something.
I guess.
It would have
It
weighed
looked
a
real.
ton or bronze or something.
guess.
I mean, it would have been very heavy. No, it was a fake. It was
Like
a-
one stagehand could
But it
carry
was
it out.
made. It was made by Fox for the series and used for the 4 years the series was on the air, and then it disappeared and was bought at some kind of a studio auction by Amy Heckerling, who is a producer-director who did Fast Times at Ridgemont High
And Baby Talk,
and Baby
yeah.
Talk, and it is in her living room today. I mean, she has it in her living room. I've seen it in her home. She is a big fan of Dobie Gillis, and she bought and restored the statue. In fact, we borrowed the statue from her when we did our reunion movie in 1987, Bring Me the Head of Dobie Gillis. We borrowed the statue from Amy Heckerling.
This is wonderful stuff. And by the way, there are such great pictures in here. The pictures alone are worth the price of admission. The narrative, some of the inside stories, we haven't even scratched the surface. We would like to invite your phone calls at 703-418-1500. That's 703-418-1500 to talk with Dwayne Hickman and Joan Roberts Hickman, co-authors of Forever Dobie, The Many Lives of Dwayne Hickman. It's published by Birch Lane Press. Again, our number here with lines available is 703-418-1500. We particularly appreciate first-time callers as well, so we'll talk with you after these messages.
Now look at it this way. I am sure it doesn't want you to do anything really dishonest.
Perish forbid. It's only just a teensy-weensy bit, shall we say, devious. Shall we say sneaky? We shall say sneaky.
Look at it this way, son. Where do you think you're going to get $200 from? Me?
That'll be the day.
Well, there you are.
I'll do it.
And that's my boy who said that.
Yes.
I can't tell you how much I love to hear all that. Frank
Great
Phelan
stuff.
played Herbert T. Gillis. He
Right.
was terrific. Steve Franken.
That was your
Chatsworth.
father.
Yeah.
And, of course,
Steve Franken played Chatsworth Osborne Jr., and it's just fun
And
to
Florida
hear that.
Freebus
Yeah.
was his mother.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course, we have the Maynard G. Krebs character.
Yeah, Bob Denver.
Bob Denver, who later, of course, was
Gilligan.
Gilligan on Gilligan's
yes,
Island.
he put on the sailor hat and became Gilligan.
Maynard G. Krebs.
Maynard
The G,
G.
Stands for Walter. Yes.
Yeah,
Walter.
that's true.
Yes.
We have calls coming in for Dwayne and Joan Roberts Hickman, 703-418-1500. First call is from Ottawa, Illinois. Hello. Oh, Ottawa. Oh, Rochester.
Rochester. Jack Benny.
Yeah, we were, I'll tell you, while we're seeing just exactly what's happening at that end, I must know one thing, Joan.
Yes.
Warren Beatty and Shirley MacLaine grew up in McLean,
In Arlington.
Virginia.
Arlington. They went to Washington and Lee.
Okay.
What was going on
What-
in that house?
What I want to
Jim?
know, well,
Yeah. Well, that's what Joan always says. What was going on that made these two such stars? I mean, it gave them such confidence because Warren had incredible confidence when I had none. And I was Dobie Gillis.
Did you ever have any contact at all?
You know,
with,
actually,
those?
I didn't, but friends of my family, their children went to school with them. And this friend, the Shiveleys, Gene Shively, would say, Warren would come in, and he was a basketball player, and he'd come in the house, and hello, Mrs. Shively. He was very shy, charming, and she said, I had no idea that he was going to turn into Warren Beatty.
Well, Ottawa, Illinois was even more shy than Warren Beatty.
Yes.
And they've departed. But Waynesboro, Virginia leads off now. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. How you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm the board operator over here at a radio station in Waynesboro. I normally don't
That's
call your show.
B-O-A-R-D, not B-O-R-E.
Yeah.
You're not bored.
Yeah,
You're
and,
just
This is the man who controls the volume for our affiliate in Waynesboro.
Yeah,
That's
I
true.
had to. I'm not bored either.
No.
But I just had to call because I remember that show, Dobie Gillis, and I enjoyed it, and I thought you were dynamite.
Oh, thank you very much.
You know, you and Denver, you were like Abbott and Costello.
Well, we talked about being like that. We were a team. We really were, and we worked at that. And thank you. I'm glad you saw that and enjoyed that.
And and I'm glad you're on. It's interesting listening to y'all. And have a good Thanksgiving. Huh?
Thank you.
Thank
To you,
you.
too.
Take care, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Okay, we now have, I'm told, Ottawa, Illinois now, through some delay. Go right ahead, Ottawa.
Yes, I have a question for Dwayne. The Frank Phelan, it's my understanding that he was married to a Carol Rogers, who was Dale Arden on the third episode of Flash Gordon. Is that true?
Yeah. His wife was an actress, and her name was Carol. I didn't know her last name.
Carol Hughes, rather. Carol
Hughes. That's right. Now
Carol Hughes.
that's correct.
And
Now, was she in Flash Gordon? I didn't know that.
She played Dale Arden in the third. There were 3 Flash Gordon episodes, and she played the third one.
I didn't know that, but I knew Carol, and
Is
yeah.
she still alive?
No, I don't think so. I know Frank passed away
Oh, okay.
several years ago, and I don't think she would be either. But that's very interesting.
Yes, I just wondered because I wanted to send her a picture.
No, I
All
don't
right.
think so. But that's fascinating. I never knew that.
Yeah, she played Dale Arden along with Buster Crabbe and Flash Gordon in the 1940 version.
Boy, there's a bit of trivia.
Yeah, that is. If you're
Yeah.
a Flash Gordon buff, you like to follow up on those things.
Right.
Well, thanks a lot.
Thank
you,
you.
Ottawa. Appreciate that call. Next up, El Paso. Good evening. Hello, El Paso.
Buenas noches from El Paso, Texas. How are you doing?
We're fine,
Hi
thank you.
there.
Fine. Hi.
Hey, Dobie, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks.
I had a question for you. Is it true that Maynard is Beavis' grandfather?
Probably
Beavis's
not.
grandfather?
I doubt very
I
seriously
think
that-
that's true, yes.
I doubt that there's much truth to that. By the way, you do answer when people call you Dobie.
Yes, of
Yeah.
course. Yes.
Joan, do you ever answer when anyone calls you, or does anyone ever call you Mrs. Gillis?
Let
Oh,
me
yes.
tell you,
They say, "Are you
yes.
Zelda?"
Yes,
that's
I
the-
also get
yes,
that. You know,
yes.
but it was interesting. 2 years ago tonight, when I had our little boy, I was in the labor room, and the nurse was leaving and said, "Thank you, Mrs. Gillis. Goodbye." And I thought, okay, okay.
Here's Fayetteville, Arkansas. Next, go right ahead.
Yes, Mr. Hickman.
Yes, sir.
I'm a tremendous fan of yours. I have to tell you, I'm sure this is unbeknownst to you, but in 3rd grade, my girlfriend had an autographed picture from you, and you were my first genuine rival.
Oh, really? Well, thank you. I don't know. Is that good or bad? I hope it didn't hurt your...
I was going to ask
Is she
you-
still your girlfriend?
Yeah, is she still your girlfriend?
No, as a matter of fact, but amazingly, we're still friends.
Good.
But what I was going to tell you was, there was always a theme of honesty, of do the right thing 30 years before the fact, in most every episode, and it was a real strong influence. I was 9, 10, 11 years old, and it genuinely influenced the way I looked at the world, and I just wanted to thank you. And I know there's a lot of other people, baby boomers just like myself, that you can trivialize some of it, but it genuinely was important.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, because, we tried very hard to make it a show. I sat there in front of that statue and talked from my heart, and there was a sincerity and a vulnerability about the whole thing, and we tried to make it that way. It was really very representative of all that was good in the 50s, I think, and we wanted it to be that kind of show. At least I always felt that I wanted Dobie to be that kind of a character, so I'm glad it came through like that, and thank you.
It genuinely was relevant. The other thing I wanted to ask you was, you were so young. Did you have any input into how the episodes would go?
On Dobie Gillis?
Yeah.
No, not really. Max Schulman created the whole thing in short stories, and he had made up his mind a long time ago how he wanted everything to be. In fact, he said to me, when I go to sleep at night, you disappear, because I created you. And that was the way Max was. So I really had very little input. But the one thing I did ask for a lot was more warmth or more humanity, more. I'm a sucker for that. I think that's what's lacking in television today, frankly.
Were you just an outstanding young actor, or was that you?
Well, I don't know. I can't say, but I did the best I could, and
You did a great job.
I guess it was me to some extent.
He's really Peter Lorre in studio. I'd say it was great acting.
Thank you, Jim. But I guess it was me.
Well, I'm still a fan and always will be.
Thank you.
Thank
Buy
you.
the book. You'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
What is the name of the book?
It's called
again?
Forever
Friday Night in Lane?
Dobie. Forever Dobie. It's got a picture of Dwayne on the cover holding this heart, and in it says Forever Dobie. It's published by...
It's bought Friday.
It's published
Okay,
good.
great. You'll enjoy it. You'll
Yeah.
get a big kick out of
The
it.
pictures alone, I'm telling you, caller, the pictures alone will knock you out. It's
Yeah.
just
And
a
get
great
one for
stocking
your
stuffer.
friend.
No,
Really, it's a great stocking stuffer if you've got friends with big flat feet.
I think so. Yeah, but I think people will enjoy this book.
I think so. We'll take more calls coming up in a moment at 703-418-1500. I couldn't help but be struck by the caller from Fayetteville talking about a TV character as a positive role model. Well, talk about outdated.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's one of my criticisms of television today. I think we need more of that. I really do. There's a kind of homogenized look to television today, and there's kind of negative characters in the shows, I think. And I think we need some more, we need more family-style entertainment and with those values.
Does it not sell anymore? I have to assume there's a reason. I assume that the people in Hollywood are venal enough that if it sold, they would be doing it.
Maybe they
No.
think it won't sell. But
I don't think they do think it'll sell, and I also think that they get on a bandwagon of one thing that they seem to think that it works. For example, if you look at Roseanne, isn't Grace Under Fire really Roseanne as a blonde? You know, don't we
Yeah,
just keep
yeah,
making
that's a
the
good
same
point.
show?
That's a good
That's
point.
very,
you know?
very
So the
funny.
shows are all kind of the same thing,
Yeah.
you know, and they're afraid to try anything different. You know, they really are.
And I think they go for the shock value or the course or the whatever, and I think
I don't
it's
like that.
refreshing.
Like this is a family book. We purposely there's not any words
No,
in it. That
no
not
smart.
a one, and
No.
it's not a tell-all. I don't have that much to tell, you know, except the stories and the, you know,
The stories are
the stories are
priceless.
fun. But it's not a gossipy book,
No.
and it's not a four-letter word book. I wouldn't want one of those.
The only character in his underwear is the young Dwayne.
in his jockey
In a
shorts
very innocent surrounding.
at 10 years old.
703-418-1500 is our number, and we do have lines available. We'll pause briefly, and then we'll take more of your calls for Dwayne and Joan Roberts Hickman. 703-418-1500, our number. We'll be back on the Jim Bohannon Show after these messages.
You know, Maynard, I'm kind of looking forward to tomorrow night. Champagne, caviar, candlelight. Yeah, me too. Maynard, you're my best buddy in the whole world, and I love you more than life itself, but you are not coming along tomorrow night. Oh, yes, I am. Oh, no, you're not. Oh, yes, I am. All right, Maynard, before we go in, let's run through it once more. Who are you? I am Krebs, your loyal chauffeur, valet, and bodyguard, who you never go any place without me. Very good. Now, who am I? You're, don't tell me. Chatsworth. Splendid. Yeah, Chatsworth Splendid Jr. I can see the evening's going to be a smash. And the girl's name is Cynthia Vanderfell, and she's so ugly you get sick looking at her.
Great sounds from that wonderful show at Dobie Gillis.
I said you're laughing.
You were
at my
enjoying
own,
it. Yeah, Dwayne was enjoying his stuff.
Enjoying my own material.
The writing is so fabulous. That's why it stands up for 35 years.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, not me necessarily, but the writing and the concept.
Well, now you have some input now in television. How come we aren't seeing more creative writing and shows that aren't cookie-cutter copies of everything else that worked?
Because it's really hard to get them on. The networks dictate what the shows are going to be, and we have the stand-up comic thing, and they go out and find stand-up comics and then build a show around them. And the problem is they build the same shows. They all look the same. Shows don't have their own peculiar personalities like they used to have. For example, when I was doing the Bob Cummings show, that was a very high-energy show. Right next door was Ozzie and Harriet. It was like a home movie. Every show was different. Burns and Allen was very different than the Jack Benny show. So it was different in those days. But today, the network and the studio and they have too much input, I think.
Much more so. Much more input than they had when you were doing the show.
Yes. And they tend to give the same notes to everybody, and then the shows all look the same.
Well, more calls coming in now, and we should give people a chance to call in. 703-418-1500 is our number. 703-418-1500 for Dwayne Hickman and Joan Roberts Hickman. We go to Fairfield, Iowa. Good evening.
Hello, Mr. Hickman.
Hi.
You were Chuck on the Bob Cummings show.
Yes, I was.
Did you talk about that earlier?
Not a great deal. We just mentioned it in
not a
passing.
great deal, but I started that show in 1953. I was going to college, Loyola in Los Angeles, and I took that job doing that pilot instead of going to work for the Department of Water and Power.
I tuned in late, so I missed that.
Yeah, so I took that show, I did that show, and then did it for 5 years.
Well, now, was Nancy Culp a semi-regular on
Yes, she was.
What would she like
Pamela
to work-
Livingstone was her
Right,
character.
what would she like to work with?
She was lovely. She was terrific.
I liked her on that and also later on Beverly Hills.
Yeah, she went to the Hillbillies after the Bob Cummings show, probably because she was so good on Cummings, but also Paul Henning created the Bob Cummings show, and then Paul Henning later created the Beverly Hillbillies and Petticoat Junction and Green Acres and all those shows. So he was a big fan of her work.
Well, I didn't know Bob Cummings' show until it came on in reruns during the 60s.
Yeah, and it's being rerun now in parts of the country. I know in the Washington, D.C. area it's being run on cable.
Oh, I'd love to see it out here in the Midwest.
So call your local cable station.
Yeah, call your cable station.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you
very much, Fairfield. Nancy Culp, by the way, ran for Congress some years ago,
Yes, she
and
did.
Buddy Ebsen
Right.
actually campaigned against her.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
No, I didn't know.
Well,
I didn't
I don't know if he made a formal campaign appearance, but he recorded a message used by her opponent that he didn't feel that Miss Culp, although she was a fine actress, was really qualified to be in Congress.
That may be one of those
philosophical
conservative,
differences.
liberal.
I think it was.
I think
so.
Buddy might have been a conservative, and I think she was a liberal.
Yeah, Buddy's been on the show. I think that was the
Probably,
yeah.
probably, yeah.
What do you think about actors and actresses in public life? We have another call here, but I'm
Well,
just
I
curious.
plan to run for something, I tell you that. Dog catcher.
Yeah.
No, I think it's kind of interesting. It's going on. Sonny Bono. is
Right,
now-
a new congressman from California.
Yeah, so it
exactly.
happens. I mean,
We've
why
got
not?
him, babe.
Yes,
Why
I-
not? Why not?
Here's Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Hello, welcome.
Hi. I was too young to watch Dobie.
Oh,
You're never too young.
California. I don't know the year it was even on.
59 to 63.
and then
Okay.
reruns for forever.
Yeah,
Well, I
it's
was
still
born
out there.
in 60, but I have a question. It sounds so good just listening to you all talk about it, and I've heard it referred to before, and I just wondered if it's out on video anywhere.
No, it is not, but I
Oh.
suspect it will be, because they're bringing
Good.
back all those kinds of shows. Probably 20th Century Fox owns it, and they'll probably put it out.
Great.
And they'll colorize
I'd love
it
to
or
see
do
it.
something to it, probably. Nickelodeon was running the show for a long time. I don't know if they are currently, but it'll be back, so watch for it.
Great. Also, I just wanted to make a remark about the television shows that you're all talking about, the networks and, what's on. And I'd like to know what they think then about the Cosbys and Little House on the Prairie and the hits that they were. And there
Well,
was
that's
a recent
exactly the
one called
point. See,
Christy,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Sure.
that's
Okay.
exactly the point. Those shows were quite a while back now, but Cosby was a great show. But that doesn't mean we need 10 more like Cosby, And Little House on the Prairie was probably very difficult to get on if it weren't for Michael Landon at the time. So,
I think you also mentioned Christie. Is that right? I
You
think.
mentioned Little House. What were the other?
Yeah,
you
Christie.
mentioned Cosby.
Christie was one of them
yeah.
too, which is sort of a Little House revisited.
Yes.
And I think that's charming. It's a real family show. It's sort of
Right.
like Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. Or
Yeah,
is that it?
yeah.
Medicine Woman?
Mhm.
And they're well, I shouldn't say they're hoping, but if maybe there's something canceled in the fall, they're saying that from the fall runs, they're saying they might get Christy back on, and the person who is working on it is working on some additional episodes right now. So I hope they get it back on.
well, I hope
But I
so,
think
because
the
we need...
politicians are not. I think it's the networks are just like the politicians, and they don't have the pulse of America.
Well, that's very true.
Well, they
That
think
is
they
true.
do, though.
I think that's very
Yeah.
true. They don't necessarily represent the public, and it's a problem.
Well, more calls are coming in. Our number is 703-418-1500. Dwayne Hickman and Joan Roberts Hickman are our guests. They are the co-authors of Forever Dobie, published by Birch Lane Press. We'll be back on the Jim Bohannon Show after these messages. Welcome back to the Bohannon Show. 703-418-1500 is the number. We have Dwayne Hickman and his wife Joan Roberts Hickman. They are co-authors of Forever Dobie, as we talk of not only Dobie Gillis, but the other incarnations of TV through the eyes of our guests. Before we go any further, we have a call waiting here, but this is a very special day. It is a birthday, and would you
Yes,
two
yes.
like to...
Albert Thomas
Hickman,
is
yes.
2 today,
Okay.
so we'd like to sing
Yes.
Happy birthday
Okay.
to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, dear Albert, happy birthday to you.
And you can play this back and be mortified when you're 16.
Isn't that special? Really? Would you like Albert to go into television?
Oh, no.
I
No.
want him to do whatever he wants to do.
Yeah.
You're not going to be a
But,
stage dad?
Oh,
No. I would not encourage show business
And we have a lot of
necessarily.
people that say, well, you're going to put him in the movies, you're going to put him in commercials.
No,
he's
we're
so
going to just
cute,"
hope
or
he gets
no.
a nice, happy childhood
normal,
and
nice kid.
yeah, and goes to school and
Yeah.
does nice, happy things.
Here is New Britain, Connecticut now. Go right ahead.
Yes, hello. I'm just curious. I went to school in Westport, Connecticut back in the late 1950s,
Uh-huh.
and I went to school with Dan Schulman, who I believe is the son of Max Schulman. And do you keep in contact with?
No, he has a son, Peter Schulman, who I know Max did live in Westport, Connecticut. He has a son who's a pediatrician in Los Angeles.
Oh,
But I don't know Dan. I don't know him, but I know Max did live there, so I don't know what other family he had.
Okay, because I remember reading one of his books, and he had mentioned, several people that I knew, and they were mentioned in his book. I was just curious to know.
We'll be giving out the Hickman's home phone number a bit later on, so you might want to call and you can follow up.
We'll all stay in touch.
Sure. Thanks a lot, New Britain. Here's Akron, Ohio next. Hello, you're on the air. Akron?
Hello.
Yes, go right ahead. You're on the radio.
I'm caller, a little anxious, but thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I didn't hear what book you were. Are you doing it?
We have written a book, Joan, my wife Joan and I, called Forever Dobie, The Many Lives of Dwayne Hickman. And it's out this last week, and it's all about my career from childhood on to old age as I sit here in the studio. And I think you'd enjoy it. There's a lot in it about Dobie Gillis, television in the 50s and 60s, and it's a nice book.
And it should be in your bookstore now, or at least next week, for sure.
We've had a wonderful time. This hour has flown by. I want to thank you both for sharing so many wonderful stories with us.
Oh, thank you, Jim. We enjoyed
super.
being here.
This
Thanks.
was great.
Dwayne Hickman and Joan Roberts Hickman. And again, we've had some callers saying, what was the name of that book? Forever Dobie. All together now. Forever Dobie. Thank you. Dwayne Hickman and Joan Roberts Hickman, our guest. Birch Lane Press is the publisher. Stick around on the Bohannon Show. Larry King, you may have heard of him, up next on the Mutual Broadcasting System.